The creeps. You will feel their terror. Terrifyingly sharp.
What we had here was real intercourse. Hell of a lot of sperm.
The circumstances of these rapes and murders are too unreal.
Every time this kid has a dream, somebody in this town dies.
What's the analysis from the lab on the sperm?
What's the boogeyman?
I think my past has something to do with these murders.
This is Dirk McLean from the 1982 film The Incubus, and you're listening to the Hysteria Continuum.
Yeah, indeed you are, and welcome back to the Hysteria Continues. We're up to episode 18, and I had to check that we've actually done that many. It doesn't seem that many, but we obviously have. So welcome back. Thank you for joining us yet again as we look and delve into the darker recesses of the slasher movie. And again, we're not going for a Friday 13th or a Halloween or any particularly well-known slasher movie. We're on the same groove as we've been recently, and we're looking at The Incubus from 1982. And that's going to be our feature presentation for this week. But before we get started, I shall introduce us. I'm Justin, the webmaster of The Hysteria Lives and the author of Teenage Wasteland. And as ever, joined by our denizens of destruction from across the pond, we have Nathan.
Hello, friends.
Hello, Nathan. And Joseph.
I am Sancho.
Okay, that's slightly creepy. But and from across a slightly smaller pond, we also have Erik from Ireland.
Yeah. Disgruntled Erik, because we just had an off-air conversation about a piece of music in Incubus, and I happen to disagree. So,
So do I.
Right.
I disagree.
Well, we will come on to that as the
being the operative word for this movie.
yes. I was going to say, as the bishop said to the actress. So, yes, we're going to be talking about The Incubus later, and also we're very, very lucky to have two interviews, one with The Incubus himself, Dirk McLean, and also Helene Udi. Well, I'm not sure if... Is that how you pronounce the name?
Udi.
Udi.
And it's LN. Sort of like Ellen.
Ellen. Okay. Well, that's my pronunciation out the window. But we're going to be talking to both those a little bit later. And also to let you know what else we've got on the show, we are going to be talking about our top 3 scariest slasher moments. So write in, let us know if you agree with our decisions. We're also going to be talking about, obviously, recently seen. And when we talk about recently seen, we haven't actually recorded for almost 2 months now. In the interim, I went to California, and I know, Erik, you've been travelling, haven't you? And
I've been to sunny Mallorca, yes.
Sunny Mallorca. So we've been having our holidays, and the boys in America, you've been up to various bits and pieces, haven't you?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we won't go there. We won't delve too deeply into into what you've been up to. But it's nothing illegal, I don't think. So, yes, well, we haven't recorded for 2 months, so we're a little bit rusty. So if it comes across a little bit like that, then we're going to be oiling ourselves up, as it were, and moving straight on to our recently seen. And we're going to try and limit it a little bit because, obviously, it's been 2 months. So, Joseph, what have you been watching recently?
Well, last night I rewatched Night School, a.k.a. Terror Eyes. And this is a movie that I was not really warm on for a while, but I watched it again last night and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's really brutal. It's really well made, well shot, and it has some good snappy dialogue. I mean, some of it's kind of corny and the identity of the killer is extremely obvious, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it this go around. What did you think about it?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen Night School for many years now, actually, because I do have the tape, an old pre-cert VHS copy, but it's basically fucked. It doesn't play anymore. I tried to watch it relatively recently, so I was hoping to hold out for the DVD release, which I believe they're putting out, aren't they? On is it Warner Brothers, or who put this out?
It's Warner Brothers, I believe.
aren't they doing one of their catalogue releasing where they don't do a proper release, but they put it out on DVD on
demand? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on demand right now. That's where we watched it. It was on demand.
Okay. What, from Baby Jesus, or was it actually...
No, cable. So
really?
we actually... I didn't pay for it. Grant did, but we watched it at his house.
And was it a good copy?
Yeah, it was not bad. I mean, it looked like a VHS transfer, but it looked like it was cleaned up significantly. But I don't know. I found this film to be kind of like a sleazier version of a giallo, if that's possible. I was kind of surprised, the first time I saw the film, I really didn't care for it. But this time around, I found myself just really getting into it and focusing on all the little intricacies of the film. And there's one scene where the killer decapitates a woman and they throw her head in an aquarium, and I'm pretty sure this wasn't staged, but it hits a poor turtle in the head, and the turtle looks at it like, what the fuck did you do that for? And then he just starts eating at the severed head, and I kind of got a kick out of that.
It's a film I'd be quite keen to cover on the podcast at some point fairly soon. I wonder if we could get Rachel Ward on. What do you reckon the chances are?
I'm sure she's not ashamed of her performance in the film at all.
And she's in Final Terror as well, so we could get 2 for the price of 1 if we got her.
That would be wonderful. Yeah. But I've got a feeling, well, who knows? Nothing.
It's from the director of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, isn't it?
It is.
We mentioned that last night.
Yeah, which was a very strange career move for him. But yeah. What else have you been watching, Joseph?
I also watched the 1977 made-for-television film Night Terror, which stars Kim Novak as a woman traveling across country to see her sick kid in the hospital in Denver. And what happens is she sees this guy who's basically, I think he's some kind of shell-shocked war veteran, and he talks with one of those things you hold to your throat and it makes you sound like this. But basically, she sees him kill a cop, so he starts chasing her, through the desert, and she's trying to avoid him, and she runs into all kinds of trouble and bad luck, and it's like a big cat and mouse game. But what I really liked about the film is that she's really, really resourceful, and at the same time, he's really, really resourceful as well. So it's kind of this chess game in the desert, as if that's a good description to call it. But I really, really enjoyed it a lot, and I think you posted on my Facebook link that you liked it too. So what did you think?
Yeah, I really liked it, actually. It's really effective thriller, isn't it? Because Valerie Harper was also in The People Across the Lake, which is a kind of...
Was it Valerie Harper?
Yeah.
I said Kim Novak. Where did I get that from?
I don't know, not sure.
She's done we were going to watch TV movies.
We were going to watch Satan's Triangle, and the disc messed up, and I remembered seeing her name. So I'm sorry, it was actually Valerie Harper, not Kim Novak.
Have you seen pictures of Valerie Harper now?
No.
She would give you a night terror, but she's been. She has, she's been pulled quite tight, put it that way. But
she actually looked all right in Night Terror. She was kind of attractive for.
But that was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I really like it. It's really effective, kind of rip-off of Duel, isn't it? The Spielberg movie, but in a good way. It's actually quite a neat little proto-slasher. How about you?
I'll be a little controversial. I actually liked it a little more than Duel, personally.
Okay. Which, interestingly, I think, this is quite nerdy. I think the person who played her husband in The People Across the Lake was the person who was the lead in Duel, but I'm probably wrong on that, actually, so just ignore that. But how about you, Erik and Nathan? Have you seen Night Terror?
I watched it as well.
Oh, you watched it as well. What did you think, Nathan?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, yeah. I'm a big fan of made-for-TV movies anyway, horror movies anyway. So it's rare that I come across one that I don't like.
Okay, excellent. What about you? You've not seen it, Erik?
No, but I am a big fan of Duel, and if it's along those lines, then I'll definitely seek it out.
Yeah,
You should purchase it very soon.
Yeah,
I will purchase it very soon.
Okay.
Actually, I do believe that it is on DVD. I'm not sure where you can find it, but I'm sure it is on DVD.
Probably the same place you found it, so we could watch it last night.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's. Yeah, you should seek it out.
Excellent. Well, okay. Well,
Walmart, was it?
Walmart.
Yes. Because they're the only place that's open, after midnight or after 8 o'clock.
It's the only American shop I could think of, or store.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or Macy's or something, or I don't know. Anyway, so
the Five and Dime is that a shop? What's a Five and Dime?
Five and Dime is a description for. It means it's kind of like mom and pop.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, Joseph. How about you, Nathan? What have you been watching?
I watched My Super Psycho Sweet 16 Part 2, and I kind of agree with you, Justin. It's not as good as the first. It's not bad. I mean, it's a decent watch, but my problem is it focuses a little bit too much more on the teen angst than on the slasher. And there's also no spectacular deaths, just like you mentioned. I mean, there's the cake death, but even that's not, just felt kind of lazy to me. I wanted something like that sushi cake death, and I didn't get it.
Yeah. I mean, that exactly, that was my feeling. It was kind of like, you expect teen angst in a teen slasher movie, but you really need to get on with the slashing, don't you? And it just wasn't satisfying. It was a fun film,
yes,
but yeah, just not a patch on the original, unfortunately. But did you watch them, Erik?
I've watched the first one, and I really liked it. I still haven't seen the sequel.
No, well, you're not missing much. I mean, it's a good way to waste 90 minutes, but you
could also purchase that one.
Of course.
Of course, yes. Excellent.
Doing all kinds of baby Jesus references this week.
Yes. Well, we obviously we do. Well, we come on to what we've been buying. I could talk about what I've been buying at shops shortly. But Nathan, what's your other one you've watched?
My other one, I watched the new found footage movie Evil Things.
Okay.
It's the one, I guess it's like a group of friends that are going up to this cabin and they're filming the weekend because it's, one girl's birthday. And they end up just passing a van on the road, and this van just starts stalking them, It's just like your found footage stuff, things start to get weird. The van, kind of passes by the cabin they're staying at and stuff. And, like eventually he attacks. But I mean, here's my problem with it. I don't think you can make a good slasher movie found footage. I mean, for one, I think their reason for keeping the camera running was kind of lame. And I mean, if there's a guy trying to kill you, I mean, why are you going to lug around a big camera? I mean, you're not going to, that doesn't make sense to me. And also, we don't see any death scenes. I mean, obviously, you can't unless the guy holding the camera's in the room while somebody's getting killed. And it seemed kind of sloppy to me because, a character will disappear and then, one character behind a door is screaming and he's getting killed. And then, like, it just kind of cuts to the end with the last girl kind of feeling her way around. And, like, it's like 3 or 4 characters just disappear and we don't even know what happened to them. We assume they died, but, we don't know. So, the whole thing just felt kind of, I don't know. I give it a 5 out of 10. It was just average.
It's funny, isn't it? The whole found footage thing has kind of come back into vogue, isn't it? Because I watched Atrocious recently, the Portuguese one, which is all right. It's nothing special.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it a lot.
Yeah, I was a bit kind of that. That was a kind of slasher-esque sort of found footage one, wasn't it? And also the Tunnel, the Australian one.
I really liked the Tunnel.
I quite liked it.
I did too.
Yeah. But I haven't seen this one. And, of course, it brings us on to talking about slasher movie, found footage slasher movies, is the new Friday the 13th sequel. The internet was abuzz with talk of it being a found footage version of Friday the 13th, and which we discussed at some length on the forums and also on the Facebook pages. And it seemed like consensus was mostly that people didn't think it would be a good idea. Probably exactly for the reasons you were saying, Nathan. How do you film gory deaths unless the person who's filming them is in on the act? And of course, Jason never works as a double act, so I don't know how that works.
Unless Jason has the camcorder himself.
He could. Yeah. That's a good way of doing it.
He might have an iPhone.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe the killer from Island of Blood could teach him how to juggle weapons and cameras at the same time.
Oh, that'd be good. Well, that could be it. I suppose someone could... I'll tell you what, a good way they could do it is somebody captures Jason and then they put a camera on him and he doesn't know it, but it's kind of attached to his head or something, or I don't know. And then they watch him going on, send him into a camp. But I think it'd be pretty stupid. But anyway... Evil Things, was it? Did you watch that as well, Joseph?
No, I haven't seen that. I actually recommended it to him because I saw the trailer, and then when he told me that it was pretty, kind of iffy. I haven't really had the gumption to get up to watch it So, yeah.
Okay.
But I am interested. I am interested in the Friday the 13th found footage idea. I think it could be done well if they figure out a way to keep the camera rolling without some stupid excuse.
I think you're right. I mean, I also think that the thing that probably makes it attractive for them is they could do it extremely cheaply. They could pump out a Friday the 13th film for the kind of the budget they used to pump them out for, like a million or 2 or 3 million back in the the mid 80s. So we'll see what happens. If you're talking of found footage films, has anyone seen Apollo 18?
Yes.
No.
No. Who has? Sorry, I missed.
I have.
Yeah. Did you like it?
And
First.
I'll go first to say that I was not a big fan of it. It may have been the quality of the cameras and stuff. I don't know. I'm just saying that it's okay, but like I don't know. I guess to give it more realism, the cameras are not the best quality, and they kind of switch around outside, inside, and until the ending, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I mean, it took me till the end, and I'm like, oh, I get it now, and it's a clever idea, but it wasn't really worth sitting through the movie, I didn't think.
Okay. How about you, Joseph? What did you think?
I probably enjoyed it a little more than he did. The one thing I liked about it was the really intelligent idea for making the moon rocks the actual monster in the film. Yeah. Because, I mean, you get up there and you expect him to run into some type of Cloverfield monster, but that's not what happens. He gets a rock sample to take back to his child, and that's where things, pretty much go off the rails. I mean, it gets inside his suit and infects him, and it's sort of like it's basically moon rocks with spider legs, and they infect you and basically turn you into a crazy person. But I do kind of agree with the...
Would that be a spoiler, do you think, Joseph?
I'm sorry?
Would that be a spoiler, by any chance?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't spoil everything, but we spoil everything anyway. But anyway...
not for movies we haven't seen, Joseph. But anyway, no, not for movies we haven't seen. But no, we'll forgive you. We'll forgive you.
No, we haven't seen it.
No, we haven't seen it. So.
Well, that's not a huge spoiler, but basically, I kind of agree with him about the cameras shifting in and out of the ship and onto the moon and in and out of the ship. But I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it a little more than he did, I guess. Okay. And sorry for the spoilers.
Okay, we'll forgive you. Okay.
Justin?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you and Erik something because I read about a movie recently, and it sounded like a found footage movie made in 1992 in the UK called Ghost Watch.
Oh, yeah.
Have y'all heard of that? Is it any good?
Yes. I found it really effective on the first watch, but then rewatching it on DVD last year or the year before, it's quite flimsy. But first time was really good, and it caused quite a hysteria about it, didn't it, Justin? Yeah. In the press.
In the press, because it was, I think it was done over Halloween night in 92.
1992, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was done. It wasn't given away at all that it was a mockumentary. It was done as on the BBC in prime time,
using regular BBC presenters.
Yeah, and they sort of said it was like a proper investigation of a haunted house, and it was coming on Halloween night. And what it was a mockumentary. It was all filmed before, but it was done as if it was a live, a live production. And they had this kind of, it was all from a haunted house, and there was this ghost called Pipes, and it was kind of like they were basically doing a kind of ghost watching, one of those ghost hunter things in the house before it even became a genre of its own on TV. And it was so effective because a lot of people, it started off quite subtle, and so you didn't know that it wasn't real, and there was nobody knew when it was on that it wasn't real. By the end, you realised it wasn't real because it got a bit silly, like the studio got possessed and all sorts of things like that. But at the time, it was very controversial because apparently people, there was stuff in the press about someone killed themselves after watching it. And that people went mad and, all those kind of things. I don't know if any of that was true. Probably wasn't. But, it's definitely worth hunting down. If you've not seen it, it looks very dated. And
see, I haven't seen it. Thanks for spoiling it. I would never spoil a movie like that for you.
Oh.
Touche.
Well, hardly.
Was there a spoiler?
There wasn't a spoiler.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That wasn't a spoiler. It was just apart from everyone knows that. So,
well, I could have not known that it was real. Maybe I could have think it was real until you got into the possession bit.
Yeah. Well, still, it was.
I guess he thought you were a little bit more intelligent.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true.
Take it as a compliment.
No.
But it's definitely worth watching. I think you should watch it. It's one of the things because it's actually got some really, really creepy moments in it. And now it looks incredibly dated. And if you're not from the UK or Ireland, and so you don't know the people, but the very fact, if you imagine, I don't know who would be like not Oprah or somebody like that, but somebody who's very well known on American TV, like Ellen or somebody like that, doing something and saying it was a real thing, and then tricking people into believing that what they're watching was real, it would have that same kind of effect because they were kind of quite heavyweight BBC kind of presenters on it, very well known people. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking out, and it actually not leads in because we'll do that in a minute, but the scariest slasher moments because it's a lot of people actually say that Ghostwatch was probably some of the scariest TV they've ever seen. So it'll be interesting. Watch it and see what you think. So, excellent.
I will purchase it.
Yes. Okay. Well, how about Erik? What have you been watching?
Okay. Well, the first one I saw was the big, blockbuster-ish cinema release, Final Destination 5. I know Joseph has seen this one as well.
Yes.
It, as a film itself, it's sort of par for the course up until a rather spectacular climactic sequence and a nice twist at the end, which is the best ending of all 5 by country mile. It was kind of gripping, scary, and funny all at once. Again, the 3D adds a lot to the film because at the heart of the Final Destination series it's just gimmicky. It's mousetrap done in an 18s rated violent movie way. So 3D really, really suits it. I think the strength of Final Destination is that there's a consistency to all 5 films. I mean, the first 2 are particularly good, I thought. And then 3, 4, and 5 are, fairly good, pretty decent, but there's been no major drop in quality. And, I really enjoyed Final Destination 5. I think the ending had a lot to do with me coming out with a smile on my face thinking, God, that was really good. The ending was just so spectacular, I thought.
I haven't seen it, so don't spoil it.
Oh,
I won't spoil it because it's definitely
Do not read any spoilers on that.
No. Okay.
I loved Final Destination 5. When it got to the very end, I was totally floored. I was like, holy shit, I cannot believe that. And the whole time I was sitting there thinking I should have picked up on the clues because there are several in the film if you go back and look at them, but I did not see it come at all.
No, the clues are very subtle. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really enjoyable.
Yeah, I saw it, and I like the fact that they try to do a little something different. How Part 2 did the whole, only new life can defeat death. They tried to do that whole thing, and this movie, without giving anything away, it tries to do something a little different too, which I thought was really interesting with the whole how you can save yourself from death coming back for you.
And I found there's a rather brilliant gymnastic sequence in it.
Oh my gosh!
It's really
part that bothered me is when they kept almost stepping on the little tack or the nail.
And then there's
driving me crazy. I hated that.
There's a loose screw in this bar that this girl is spinning around on, and then there's a leaking air conditioning unit, and there's a fan that has sort of a frayed wire, and you don't know where it's going to go. And
there's several different avenues it could do.
It is. And
I kept cringing at the fact that she was almost going to step on that screw, and then she
I know. Yeah.
Almost. I was like, either step on it or just pan away from that. It's driving me nuts.
But the punchline is just absolutely brilliant.
It is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I shall make a point. I did. It was all when I was in California, in Los Angeles. It was everywhere on every billboard. And we just didn't get to see it, and so I just haven't had a chance since I've been back, but I will try and make an effort if it's still in the cinema. Great. Well, what's your next one, Erik?
The other one I saw is an ancient, when I say ancient, it was actually made in the year I was born, so it's not that ancient. It's Autopsy, the Giallo, starring Mimsy Farmer and Ray Lovelock. This is one I've seen a few times, but I keep going back to it because it's just so bonkers, basically.
Yeah.
I won't go into the plot mechanics too much because it's quite convoluted, but it starts out with all these people committing suicide, which is apparently prompted by solar flare activity from the sun. I mean, that sort of indicates what kind of level of script we're dealing with here. You have Mimsy Farmer as a pathologist who views all these corpses coming to life and laughing at her, and two of them start shagging in front of her. Then there's this bipolar priest who arrives on the scene who is a bit loopy for a man of the cloth, if you don't mind me saying. He's claiming his sister has recently committed suicide, and he's claiming that it was actually murder, and that's where sort of the plot. That's the plot strand that's more conventional. But, I mean, on the whole, it's incredibly silly, convoluted, and in true Giallo style, tries to wrap itself up with some explanations in the last 5 minutes that are, fairly satisfying. I thought it was darn good.
It's definitely one of the loopier Giallos out there,
yes.
Isn't it?
Well, I mean, anything with Mimsy Farmer tends to be on the loopy side, I think.
Well, the perfume of the woman in black or the lady in black is pretty out there as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Cool. How about you guys? Have you seen Autopsy?
No,
I don't think I have.
I haven't seen that one yet. I've been meaning to see it forever, but haven't gotten around to it yet.
No, it's definitely worth a watch. And thanks, Erik. I mean, I'll just quickly run through a couple of the ones I've seen and say we've been haven't recorded for a couple of months, so we've seen a lot of movies. But the ones I've watched most recently, seeking on from the Giallo, is to another Giallo, and that was Mario Bava's Bay of Blood. And I've just finally watched the Arrow DVD release, which is excellent, really, really good. It's never really been one of my favourite Giallos because it isn't. Funnily enough, it's not really like a Giallo, I kind of guess. I mean, famously with the Bay of Blood, it's the makers of Friday the 13th, and especially Friday the 13th Part 2, were accused of ripping it off because it's a body count movie. It's probably one of the first true body count movies where it's just endless scenes of people dying. I mean, there is a plot to it, and it's a very, very black comedy. But what it does do, which is unlike most Giallos, which tends to be not teenagers, they tend to be like 20 or 30 somethings who are kind of jet setting around the world. But in the Bay of Blood, there are those kind of people, but then you also have these fantastic 4 teenagers who turn up in a dune buggy and just dance to really bad rock music, smoke dope, have sex, and die, basically. So it's a fantastic forerunner to the Friday the 13th movies, and incredibly gory as well. Mario Bava is kind of famous for his very, very beautiful shooting of films and all the tricks he used to make films look amazing. Actually, Bay of Blood doesn't really have that. It's not much trickery, but it does have an amazing amount of gore for a film from that time. I mean, it has a hatchet to the face, it has a throat rip with a big circular sword, it has a beheading with a stump sort of spurting blood. So it is a real forerunner for Friday the 13th. So if you've not seen it, it's definitely worth watching. And it's also got without giving anything away, it's got one of the best ironic and sort of, basically down endings, ironic endings, which is typical of Mario Bava's kind of like twisted sense of humour. So, but I take it you guys have all seen it, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favourites,
Yes.
I would say.
It's a great movie.
It's very good.
Excellent. Okay, and the
Great ending.
Great ending, yes. And
great Dune buggy. Best use of a Dune
the
buggy in a movie I've ever seen.
The Dune buggy is fantastic. Isn't it? I love it. Was it not Helga or whatever her name? It's the
one
German
who looks like
girl.
Susie.
What
Isn't it
did
Brunhilde?
Brunhilde, that's it. Where she's dancing, she's just kind of. I just think she's hilarious because she's just like really ditzy and it's a fun film.
There is the fortune teller in it though reminds me of Susie. I have to say.
Yes,
it's all big black hair and eyeliner.
Yeah, no, she does. Well, I'm sure we'll get onto the Susie and Toya debate a little bit later if we have time. But the other film I saw, which I saw the other night, and I was home alone, and whenever I'm home alone, I always slip on something that I'm not supposed to, and that sounds awful, doesn't it? But,
like a negligee?
Not a negligee or anything like, but something that you know that you can't really watch in polite company. And I picked up a copy of 1981's Nightmare, actually, at Amoeba Records when I was in San Francisco. And when we were staying in San Francisco, we had a DVD player, and the people I was staying with going, "Oh, what's this? Shall we watch this?" And I was going, No, we won't watch that because I don't think you'll like it. And I knew they wouldn't be the kind of people who would like it. And actually watching it again, I realised that was probably a good decision. I really like Nightmare. It is a really sleazy movie. It's really rough around the edges. To my mind, it's the ultimate grindhouse slasher movie, and it's not really put together particularly well, apart from the amazing sequence, which, if you know anything about the film, you'll know, where the little boy beheads his mother's lover while she's on top of him, and sinks the axe into his forehead, and blood flies, the head flies. I mean, it's a kind of balletic, kind of beautifully shot, incredibly gory scene, which once seen, never forgotten. And so I watched the Code Red DVD, and which has lots of scratches and stuff like that. But for me, I'm not one of these people who gets really anal about those kind of things. I don't really mind if a film's got a few scratches on it or pops. It kind of, to be honest, it just, I quite like it. It gives it a vintage.
Gives it some atmosphere.
Absolutely. And but it was great. It's got some. It's the. What's his? Can't remember the name of the main guy now. No, I can't remember his name. But he's got a really good interview on there with him, and he's got some insights into the film. But bizarrely, it does have a 90-minute interview with the director, Scavallini, who it's all in Italian. But Erik, you very kindly sent me a link to the Code Red blog, which explained all the downsides of making that DVD, and how the guy behind Code Red basically has to pump his own money into doing these films because they don't make enough money to recoup their costs, which is very sad. But that's how it is. And I blame it on people who visit Baby Jesus nightly, but we won't go there. So anyway, what do you think of Nightmare, guys? Have you presumably seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it. It achieved notoriety over here under the title Nightmares in a Damaged Brain.
Yes.
Became a video nasty, probably one of the most famous ones, along with Cannibal Holocaust and SS Experiment Camp. And rightly so, because it is bloody violent. I haven't watched it in quite a while, but I have ordered the Code Red DVD. I'm waiting for it to arrive. It's coming from America, so it should be here in another 3 months.
Okay.
With the way the Irish postal system works.
Oh dear. Okay.
But I am looking forward to seeing it again, because I do remember quite liking it back then, even though I could tell it was very sleazy, and it's something that my mum would not let me watch.
Well, to say how sleazy it is, I mean, there's a bit in it, probably the sleaziest moment is when the main guy, who's obviously the killer, and it's not giving anything away because you know that from the beginning, goes to a peep show, and he's behind one of those screens where they have a telephone, and you've got the prostitute behind, and she's sitting on the seat with her legs akimbo, and she's pleasuring herself with a dildo, and you don't see, it's not like chopped liver or anything, but you do see her pubes and stuff, and it's just kind of, and then he falls over and foams at the mouth and has an epileptic fit, and it's just kind of, I just can't imagine a film doing it these days. What film would ever do that?
I do remember the lead child actor in it being really annoying.
Oh yeah, TJ.
Is that still the case?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, he goes to him like "lady nudie doo doo" or something like that, and he keeps on being a really little shit. But I love the bit when they're walking. The camera's following him, walking along 42nd Street. And a lot of the people walking along see the camera, and they're looking directly at the camera in the car. And the main guy says that he says without the camera following him, he would have been mugged walking along 42nd Street. And he said, and if I haven't been to New York for over a decade now, but even when I went, 42nd Street wasn't anything like it was back in 81 or Times Square. But it really shows how things have changed, and I think it's a great time capsule to show 42nd Street and that kind of grindhouse culture. So it's worth it alone for that, definitely. Cool. Okay. Well, as we all racked up over half an hour talking about what we've recently seen, and we tried to limit it to two films, I think, shall we move on to feedback?
Sounds good.
Yeah, who wants to go first? Joseph, you got some for us?
Yeah, this is from Reese Donnell, and he writes, "You guys and your podcasts are just plain awesome. I've been a slasher fan since I was 3, and the podcasts are gold for someone like me. I've been an avid follower on Facebook, too, and I envy what you guys do. Something I'd love to do myself because I'd love to share my slasher knowledge. Please keep up the good work. All the best, Reese."
Well, thank you, Reese. Excellent. And we've got like a huge amount of feedback, actually, which is great. But obviously, you would hope that after 2 months. So if you don't hear your feedback this time, hopefully we'll be reading out more next time. Have you got any more, Joseph?
Yes, this one is from Joe, or Joey, a.k.a. Henry Bozio from the Body Count Continues forums, and it's a long one. He writes, "Hi, I'm Joe. I'm a huge slasher fan. As I stated above, I'm so grateful to have found the podcast. In 5th grade, an old friend told me about Fangoria, and he had a couple. I had started catching slashers on late-night television, usually USA Up All Night, TBS, HBO, etc., in 1989 when I was 9. So when he showed me his issues, I was totally hooked. Like Justin, I had a soft spot for some of those late 90s WB slashers. I had a lot of friends in high school, but I never really wanted to go out. I was happy to stay home and watch horror films, and if someone wanted to hang with me, I'd have been down. Most of my peers were indifferent to slasher films, though, so I usually spent a good portion of my weekends alone at most of my hometown's now-defunct video stores, hunting my new drug, while my saint of a father waited in the car listening to the radio. There were several stores, and each one had certain movies that the other didn't. I loved all those old beat-up boxes with the artwork and stills. So by the time Scream came out, which I flocked to opening weekend fully knowing that it was going to be my first slasher experience, I had already experienced most of the more prolific slashers like Happy Birthday to Me and Sleepaway Camp. I had already had an idea in my head of what the early 80s must have been like because Fangoria printed some articles about Siskel and Ebert, or the public's negative opinion of slasher films. Also, my mother had bought me one of those big-ass Leonard Maltin film guides, and even though they were pretty negative, I still loved reading his bad reviews of movies that sounded awesome to me. I referenced the damn thing every time I watched a new movie. When all those watered-down late 90s clones came out, I was aware they were inferior copies, but that never kept me from having a blast. It was always fun to go on opening weekends when it would be busy, and I knew that it was the closest I would ever come to going back in time and experiencing that golden age when there was a new one, or 2 or 3, just about every weekend. Also, seeing flicks like Urban Legend, Big Hair equals better villain, only whet my appetite to see the more authentic inspirers. I haven't seen anywhere near as many flicks as you guys, but I have just as much of a deep appreciation of the slasher flick, and I can talk about this genre more than any other until no end. I never get tired of talking about or listening others talk about slasher flicks. That's why I love listening to you guys so much. You and Nathan are so entertaining, and I love to hear both your takes on your picks from all the top 3s. Even if I've never seen or heard of your picks, I'm still so entertained listening to your descriptions and what you liked or hated. I don't know anyone with whom I could ever have the conversations you guys are lucky enough to engage in with one another. I'm kind of sublimating listening to you guys for the friends I wish I had, so consider me a huge fan and soon-to-be supporter or stalker, if you will. Keep up the good work, and I can't wait to hear episodes about The Mutilator, Slumber Party Massacre, and Dress to Kill. What's that say? Thanks so much for keeping me sane on the lonely nights. It's awesome to listen to you for. I'm in the middle of episode 6 as I type this, and I'm so relieved to have some many more episodes to listen to. Thanks, Joey. And that was a really long email from Joey.
That was. Well, thank you, Jerry.
Yes.
Thank you,
Can
Joseph.
I ask, what are late 90 WB slashers?
I know you did last summer. Is it Warner Brothers TV?
Oh, Warner Brothers. Oh, sorry. I thought WB was an acronym for something else. Sorry. It was Warner Brothers.
I think
that's okay. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, thank you, Joey, and thank you, Joseph, for reading that all in one go. So, how about you?
My throat hurts now.
Eric, have you got?
Yes,
got
I
one
have
for us?
2 here. Yeah.
Okay.
This is from Dan Dominguez. He says, "Hello guys, I discovered the podcast about a month ago and just can't get enough. It's like a direct line to my childhood when I lived, breathed and ate horror films, slasher films in particular. Not much has changed really. I'm still a huge fan, but nothing like you guys. Your knowledge of arcane and obscure slasher films is astonishing. I thought I'd seen everything out there, but it's obvious I've only scratched the surface. With your help, I'm discovering films I never knew existed or haven't seen in years. I rewatched Funeral Home and Rawhead Rex and saw All the Boys Love Mandy Lane recently after hearing you guys talk about them. I love the structure of your podcast too, devoted to one film but peppered with great interviews, listener feedback and top 3 lists. Priceless. Keep up the great work. I'm officially hooked. And just for your information, some of my slasher faves that would make great podcast subjects are Hell Night, Tourist Trap, Humongous, Rituals, Night School, which we've just mentioned, and The Final Terror. That's Peace from Dan Dominguez. Thank you, Dan, for that. All 6 films he mentions there would indeed make excellent episodes because I happen to, love all 6 of them.
Excellent. Well, I think hopefully we will get around to all of those at some point soon. So thank you, Dan. And,
Humongous actually coming to DVD in November, I believe, from Scorpion Releasing.
Yes.
I hear it's actually cleaned up a lot this time around.
Excellent, yes.
I think I mentioned, didn't I? I gave them I sent them some memorabilia for it, but I don't know if it's going on there. And I just scored actually for 95 cents off eBay.com 4 original photos from Humongous. Which are each going for $25 elsewhere. So I thought that's quite a good score. So anyway, just showing off. What's the next one?
Next one is from our good friend Tosca Topsocks.
Oh, Tosca.
He says, "Hello again, Joseph, Justin, Erik, and Nathan. Just finished your Killer Party podcast. Whilst it's not one of my top 10 slashers, it was great to learn more about a bit of a forgotten gem. I've been busy watching My Bloody Valentine Special Edition for the umpteenth time and have caught up again with Killer Party, Stage Fright, and Cut. In trying to spread the love, I've attempted to get some of my colleagues into slashers over recent weeks and have converted a couple with the delights of My Bloody Valentine, Inside, High Lane, and Manhunt. I've also pointed them in the direction of your podcast, so you will have a few more Brummies to add to your list of listeners, hopefully. Brummies, Joseph and Nathan, are people from Birmingham in the UK, in case you're wondering.
Yes.
That was many sleepless nights wondering what that meant.
Yes. Do you know who else? Do you know who the most famous Brummie is, though? Toya Wilcox.
Oh.
Okay, I'll continue.
She might not be
here.
the most famous one. Surely
she
that's,
is. Well,
she?
Maybe Simon Le Bon, maybe.
Yeah, I think he's probably slightly more famous. But anyway.
Anyway, Tosca goes on to say, have literally just pressed the button on my purchase of Slaughter High and Murder Loves Killers too. Justin, you were right. I'm not sure about that sentence. Justin, you were right. The artwork for Slaughter High is amazing and makes buying the DVD even easier, even though I've seen it many times. Just a couple of ideas to throw out there. A few more book reviews or recommendations could be cool. And what about the top 3 endings? It's always good to see a big end. I hope that you are all well and can't wait for the next edition. As always, Tosca. Well, I think we did discuss the idea of possibly doing top 3 endings, but we thought it might be just a bit too many spoilers in one episode.
Well, Joseph seems to quite like spoiling things. So,
he does, doesn't he?
Yeah. But anyway,
as for
Tosca.
slasher books, it's not a slasher book as such, but at the moment I'm reading Nightmare USA by the lovely Stephen Thrower.
Oh, yes.
It's a Fab Press book, and it's astonishing. It's so detailed. There's so much to it.
Yeah.
And it's unlike the previous book I read, which was Kim Newman's Nightmare Movies, which seemed to be a book written by somebody who doesn't like horror. Nightmare USA is written from the perspective of somebody who loves horror so much that they give films like Don't Go in the Woods Alone such incredibly glowing reviews. And films
they should.
Yeah, exactly. So I highly recommend that for anyone. I think Volume 2 is in the works for maybe next year or the year after, but definitely worth a purchase. It's called Nightmare USA, sorry.
It's it's a massive book, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it dedicates sort of like sometimes like about 10, 15, 20 pages to a film like, I think Unhinged is in there, which is, you know.
And Acts and things like The Premonition.
Yeah. So, excellent.
I just have one other piece of feedback. It's just one sentence.
Yeah.
I gave my friend Paul a loan of Eyeball DVD.
Okay.
Is that Umberto Lenzi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he had this to say about it, just one sentence, but I thought it was quite funny. I loved Eyeball so much, I may want to run off to Barcelona and live with it in sin and torso.
Eyeball is fantastic. We watched it again recently, and that, without giving the ending away, that the closing shot that reveals who the killer is probably my favourite ever giallo reveal in all its ridiculousness. It's brilliant. So, is that all the things that... Nathan, did you have any?
No.
No? Okay.
Oh, he always sounds so sad when he says that.
It's not like we didn't give you the opportunity, Nathan. It's people who think we kind of we're horrible to him. We just lock you in a
He's the Jan Brady of the podcast.
I know. I am the Jan Brady of the podcast.
Are you swinging your hair?
Justin.
Sorry?
I said it's always Justin.
It's just how it is.
Well, considering the film that he's picked for our next go around, I think it is safe to say we should lock him away somewhere.
Oh God, yeah. And
I'll get another interview for it too. I'll try to get 2 interviews. How's that?
2 interviews. Gosh. Okay. Yeah. We won't. So, are you going to spoil it? You're going to tell us? Are you going to tell our listeners what you've picked?
I will not say. I'll just say that I'm the only person that probably likes it, and I'll also give you a hint. If you've listened to our past podcasts, we bring it up, and Justin hates it.
Yes. Well, I haven't watched it for many, many years, and there is a good reason for that. But, yeah, well, I'm sure people will be on tenterhooks. So, excellent. Well, thanks for writing in, and we've got plenty more feedback. And if you didn't hear yours, hopefully we'll get around to it in the next show or couple of shows. So,
in the meantime, if you want to send us more, our email address is the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, or at the Body Count Continues forums, or where else can you find us?
Twitter.
That's where Twitter, yes, we're on Twitter. I'm not sure of the address. Let me look that up real quick here. That is twitter.com/THC_podcast.
Excellent. Yeah, do write it in. And we like hearing from you.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're on to now the top 3, and what we're going to do is, as we know, many a time, and many of the reasons why we love slashers is the fact is they're very, very cheesy and not particularly scary. But a lot of slasher movies actually do have very scary moments, and certainly if you saw them when you were young, and sometimes they leave real impressions. So the top 3 this time is actually going to be our scariest top 3 moments from the slasher movie. And before we get to that, Mr. Palmer on the Body Count Continues forums posted a link to a YouTube clip, which is fantastic. I've put it on the Facebook page as well for Hysteria Continues. So if you like this, click it to play a little bit more. But essentially what it is somebody took a tape recorder into a 1979 showing of Halloween, and they taped the audience reaction. And this is the audience reaction to, well, it's only about 30 seconds, the audience reaction to the closing scenes in Halloween. Isn't that amazing? Because even I am not old enough to have actually seen Halloween on its first release. So, and I've never actually seen Halloween on the big screen. It's and I would really love to. But I know modern cinema going these days can be quite annoying with people, mobile phones, chatting, all that kind of crap. And we've talked about that before. But to actually see a really good horror movie with people screaming and shouting at the screen is fantastic. And the bit I love actually, it's not on that clip, but it's on the YouTube clip, is when Donna Pleasance looks down to see where Michael Myers' body is. It's gone, and you can hear the gasps and, oh my God, like the audience. It wasn't a cliche then. It would have been really shocking for them. So it's a great clip, isn't it, guys?
Excellent, yeah. Really interesting to listen to.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Very, very neat idea.
Actually, the only time I've experienced that in the cinema would probably have been Scream 2. I remember going to an absolutely packed cinema, and everyone was it was really well behaved, but everyone was gasping and screaming at the right moments. It was it made it really, really fun, really enhanced the film. It's probably why I in retrospect, look back on Scream 2 as my favorite of the series, even though technically it probably is not.
I like Scream 2 a lot, actually.
Yeah,
I had a great theater experience too with Scream 2. So
I did too. I saw it at a midnight showing, and people were actually dressed up as Ghostface, and they had the Channel 9 News there documenting it.
Oh, really? Excellent.
Yeah. You know where the Nathan? You know where the rave is?
Yes.
Obviously. It was the theater before they built the rave. It was called Eastridge 6, and they had the midnight showing of Scream 2 before it opened on the following Friday. And me and my brother and two of my cousins went, and it was probably one of the best theater experiences of my life. I'll never forget that.
Cool. Okay. Well, shall we get on to our scariest moments? Shall we start with you,
we should.
Joseph? What's your number 3?
My number 3 is the Session 9 recordings from Session 9. And before I get into this, I would just like to say a big congratulations to Session 9 for winning the Postmodern Murder Game at the Body Count.
Well, one person applauds. Yeah.
Yeah. In this sequence, a character is basically, he's listening back to the psychiatric session recordings of the film's title. And we hear a bunch of like really spooky voices, strange music, and stuff like that. Session 9, it's a really creepy film that kind of utilizes sound techniques really well to kind of jar the viewer. So, I don't know, Justin, I sent you a sound clip, so maybe you could play that?
Yeah, here we go.
Hello, Doc. Simon. You know who I am. Billy has told me a lot about you. Billy is a smart boy. What happened on Christmas night in Lowell? Use your imagination. I'd rather you tell me, Simon. Peter was naughty, Doc. What did Peter do? He shouldn't have done it, Doc. Tell me, Simon. He scared Mary, Doc. He crept up behind her in the dark. And he scared her.
Well, thank you, Joseph.
That's a film that I first saw, real late at night, and it really stuck with me. It's one of my favorites of all time. I love Session 9.
I think I love it as well. I think it's a great film. It's very, very creepy. Very, very creepy. It's I do love a kind of slow burning horror film, and Session 9 is people might think it's not really a slasher movie, is it? But it certainly shares quite a few of the kind of motifs.
It's on the cusp. It's on the cusp, I'd say. It's
on the cusp, yeah. I mean, it's one of those films. I showed it to the same friends, actually, I was on holiday with, who I wouldn't show Nightmare to because I knew they wouldn't like it. And they hated Session 9. They thought it was really boring. But they only really like kind of really mainstream horror movies. So it's an acquired taste.
They sound like Jamie. They sound like a bunch of Jamies.
Yeah, I mean, that's what people are like. But Session 9, I think, is a really creepy movie. Yeah. Excellent. Well,
that scene is a really extended, so I had to kind of truncate it down to like a minute. But that those voices and that music just really gets to me.
Excellent. Very spooky. Okay. Thank you, Joseph. I'm just aware of the time at the moment. We're almost up to an hour, so I'm not going to speed through these, but we're going to, we shall. Should be aware of that. So otherwise, people will be coming after us with knives, perhaps. Erik, what's your number 3?
Okay, my number 3, inspired by the fact that Joseph chose a film that's not a slasher. I'm going to choose one that's not a slasher. You think it is, Justin, though, because you've reviewed it on Hysteria Lives. It's The Descent, one of my favourite films from the last 10 years. And it's the reveal of the monsters. What happens is the women find a cave with animal carcasses in it. They're viewing things through a camcorder that has night vision on it, and the camcorder swings around, capturing in the vista, and then standing behind one of the girls is one of the crawlers. Is that what they're referred as? And I remember seeing this in a packed cinema as well, speaking of good theatre experiences, and the whole audience jumped and screamed at once, and it was really spectacular, added to the impact. I mean, the whole film is brilliant, in my opinion. That particular moment stands out.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's a good film, isn't it? And it's certainly...
I love The Descent. It's fantastic.
Me too.
It's a shame the sequel's not exactly...
I don't mind the sequel. You get to see one of the crawlers doing a poo.
Yeah. Yes, we could have lived without seeing that, but there you go. But thank you, Erik. Nathan, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is from Torso.
Okay.
It's the scene towards the end with the main girl who is left in the house, and she's gotten lucky through the whole movie because the killer doesn't know that she's there, and she's managed to evade him through most of the movie, and she ends up locked in this bedroom, and it's one of those old locks with the key, and the killer, not knowing she's even in there, that the doors, he locks her in, and he leaves the house, and she thinks that she's going to be rescued if she could just get the key out. So she has a newspaper and slides it under the door. And she's trying to get the key knocked out of the lock so it'll land on the newspaper and she could pull it under the door, and unlock the door and get out. So she's messing around with this key, and then finally the key falls out, but it bounces out of reach of the newspaper. And at first watching it, I'm like, oh, she's not going to get out now. And she starts pulling the newspaper back, thinking that her plans worked. And suddenly you see a black gloved hand reach down and grab the key and put it on the newspaper. And it's just a terrifying moment, knowing that the killer standing right there was watching her do that the whole time and was just waiting on her to open the door so he can come face to face with her. It's a very scary scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And Sergio Martino, great suspense sequence, isn't it?
He's a very underrated director. I think
so.
Definitely,
as well. Yeah. I mean, it's, all of his Giallo, I really enjoy. So, yeah, a great choice there, Nathan. Thank you very much. For me, just go on to my number 3, which is a Giallo as well. And actually, Giallos mostly aren't really that scary. There's not very many. There's a few, like The House with the Windows That Laugh, and a few Giallos that have that kind of scare factor to them, but they're not really concerned about scaring, I kind of guess. But one film that did... It's one of those things with films where you get sudden moments of jolt, which are so out of character or so kind of unexpected that you get that almost out-of-body experience where you feel suddenly like you're punched and you're seeing something you're not expecting. Your mind is like a split second behind trying to sort of process it. And a film that has that kind of moment for me is Deep Red, the Dario Argento film, when the mannequin, the creepy face mannequin, suddenly comes out and runs across the room, and it's like a mechanized doll, but it's this kind of laughing mannequin which has got like a scary laughing face, and that whole idea of, again, clowns being scary, and the whole idea of forced joviality being actually tipping over into something very sinister. And it was just that moment where it's just unexpected. Nothing else like it in a film particularly. It's a fantastic film, but and it's just that moment when it kind of comes out, it gave that kind of jolt, which I thought was exemplary. It's a fantastic moment, and that's probably my 3rd scariest moment from a slasher movie. So,
very good choice.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay.
Oh, excellent choice. I love Deep Red. Very, very good movie.
It's a great movie, isn't it? And okay, well, we're on to our number 2s. So
big number 2. We're back, baby.
We're back. I don't have any sound clips for flushing toilets. I mean, I can look for one if you want one, but no.
A cat flushing a toilet.
Sorry?
A cat flushing a toilet.
A cat flushing a toilet. I'll have a look for that.
I could take my phone and go flush my toilet real quick.
Well, you could do if you want to get it. Well, there's a... Oh, what's this? It's a cat flushing toilet song. Let's look at this. Let's see what this is about.
He's a cat. Flushing a toilet, he's a cat. Flushing a toilet, he's a cat. Flushing the 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 toilet, he's a cat.
That was brilliant.
So there you go. Anyway, so
Try that.
so Joseph, what's
song
your
I've heard
big
in
number
years.
2?
Like crap.
Oh dear.
Okay,
Oh dear.
we're done.
We're done. We're waiting. Yes, we're waiting on you, Joseph.
We're ready
to
on you,
follow
Joe.
through. Okay. What's your number 2?
My big number 2 is arguably another film that may or may not be considered a slasher, but if you don't like it, you can tickle my zipper. It's the hallway sequence from Exorcist 3, and if you've seen the film, you have to agree that it's an extremely jarring moment. It basically has this nurse, she's kind of doing rounds in the hospital, and she's going around locking doors. She wanders into this one room, and we see her from like this long shot. She leaves the room, she locks the door, and as she kind of begins to walk away across the hall, the camera like really quickly pans in, and this really loud screeching on the soundtrack kind of ramps up, and this very creepy figure holding a set of garden shears kind of comes within inches of decapitating her, and then the scene kind of cuts to this image of this decapitated statue. This is another one I saw for the first time about 13 years ago, and it scared the shit out of me, to put it lightly.
I love that film, and that moment. I've said it before on the podcast, but I saw it at the premiere in London as part of a film festival in 1990, and when that moment happened, it got a round of applause, which goes to show how effective it was. So yeah, fantastic choice, excellent. Who's next?
Erik.
I think it was Erik.
Me?
Do you want me a bit of Okay, Erik, so what's your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is, specifically from Halloween 2, the 1981 version, but it's a scene that kind of appears in all the Halloween films. It's any kind of scene where the shape is lingering in the background with the person in the foreground completely unaware he's there. The exact one I've chosen is the death of Alice, just after the opening credits of Halloween 2. She's the girl on the phone talking to her friend. Her friend says, "Oh, didn't you hear about the murders down the street, blah, blah, blah." And in the background, you can see the shape out of focus comes through the sort of back door of the house and silently walks in while she's on the phone. She hears something drop behind her. She goes out to investigate, doing the whole, traditional slasher thing of "Who's there? Who's there?" And the shape jumps up and, she gets it in the neck. But the scene of the shape silently walking in through the background is something that happens in sort of a lot of the Halloween films. So it's kind of a broad number 2, so to speak.
Yeah. But that's a scene that wasn't in the original cut, I believe.
Oh, is that one of the Carpenter ones?
Yeah,
is it?
It's one of the ones he shot, so that wasn't in it at all. But I think you can actually see his hand in it, as it were.
Yeah.
So, yeah, excellent choice. Okay, well, Nathan, I think you know what's coming next. So, Nathan, what's your number 2?
Yes.
My number 2 comes from The House on Sorority Row. And have you guys heard of Alfred Hitchcock's bomb theory?
Yes.
Where, he says, basically, for anybody that hasn't heard it, I'm paraphrasing here, but 2 guys can be talking in a room together and a bomb could go off and it'll jolt the audience for a few seconds. But he says if you show the bomb and then show them talking for a few minutes, the suspense lingers a lot longer and people get more terrified. And that, is exactly what I think of when I see the scene from House on Sorority Row where the heroine is backed in the corner. And earlier in the movie, she's discovered this jester costume, and it's just really weird looking. And she's kind of back in the corner, and the jester costume's kind of next to her, but it's not really in the shot that well. You don't really think about it. And as she's standing there, suddenly you see the head of the jester costume raise up, and her being completely unaware that the killer's in the costume standing right next to her. And I think that is really terrifying because it lingers for, a little bit before he jumps out. And the director could have went the route of having him just jump out and scare everybody, But I think he made the right choice because that scene right now, gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, that's a great choice. And also that Hitchcock theory is brilliant, which goes to show why a film like Rob Zombie's Halloween has got zero suspense, or because it gives you everything, straight away. It doesn't make you wait for anything at all. And interestingly, actually, when we talk about the Incubus, that's quite a slow burning movie, isn't it? So so excellent. No, well, thank you, Nathan. I shall give myself a little bit of
I love it.
That is good, isn't it? That's random. That was very random.
I think it should be our mainstay now.
Yes, well, we shall, the world's our oyster, as it were. But this is my big number 2, When a Stranger Calls, from 1979, and Carol Kane being menaced by the killer who's hiding upstairs. It's a moment that's ripped off from Black Christmas, with the idea of the killer being in a house. But it's the first 20 minutes of When a Stranger Calls is a masterclass in suspense, and I still remember watching it originally the first time and remembering how scary it was. And when it came out, actually, I mean, they made a lot of the fact that it was one of the scariest movies ever made. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I really like the film, but it is a film that's bookended by 2 amazing bits of suspense and very scary cinema, with a rather dull procedural cop drama in the middle. And the remake tried to, basically extend the opening 20 minutes over an hour and a half, and obviously didn't particularly do it very well. But that was one of the scariest slasher moments for me. So, without further ado, shall we move on to numero uno? Joseph, do you want to go first?
All right. Well, my number 1 is from probably my favorite slasher film of all time. It's the eyeball through the open door in Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas. And any slasher fan worth his or her salt should know this one. Basically, Olivia Hussey has just discovered, the bodies of her friends in an upstairs room of the sorority house, and before she can kind of make a move, we see the killer's eyeball watching her from the crack in the door, and he's kind of whispering a bunch of creepy gibberish, as he does throughout the film. And basically she sits there and she looks up, she tilts her head and looks up and sees the eyeball, like just wide-eyed, just looking right down at her. And that's the moment she just kind of bolts. And it's pound for pound one of the freakiest moments in slasher film history. I mean, you'd have to agree.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great, fantastic movie, and the phone calls in that film, I think, are pretty scary as well, aren't they?
Oh, yes. Definitely.
Yeah, excellent. No, it's great choice. I think Black Christmas has given many people sleepless nights over the years, so yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Okay, well, Erik, do you want to give us your number 1?
My number 1 is a film we've discussed a few times, I think, Just Before Dawn. It happens at the very start, and it's a very subtle moment, but it's where the 2 guys come across the abandoned church at the very start. The old man is pretending he's a priest, and he's a bit drunk, and he has a thing of whiskey and bottle of whiskey in one hand. He's pretending he's a preacher, and he looks up at the hole in the ceiling of the church, and he can see the killer staring down at him, just motionless and silent. And the score has a sort of ominous drone on it. There's no sort of obvious sting effect like you'd get in a modern blockbuster. And it's a sort of quietly creepy moment from one of my favorite slasher films.
Cool, excellent.
That is a really good choice.
Yeah, it's a very good
I really
choice.
like that scene.
I mean, it's over. It's over in a second, like Sex with Justin. But
how would you know? How would you know, Erik?
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
How rude.
I feel ashamed. Sorry.
As an aside, the old man that you were speaking of, that's Mike Kellen. He was in Sleepaway Camp as the male.
Oh yes, he gets the arrow through the neck, isn't he?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's a 12 degrees separation, or is it whatever? Kevin Bacon? Is that the thing I'm thinking of?
12 degrees of Mike Kellen.
6 degrees. It's 6 rather than 12,
degrees.
I think. Yeah.
Well, it's 12 for Mike Kellen.
Okay.
We'll just call it 12.
Excellent. Well, no, good choice all around, and hopefully you're agreeing with them at home. And if you're not, tell us what your top 3 scary moments are. How about you, Nathan? What have you been scaring you?
I think you got a clip of it.
Oh, yes,
Don't
I
you?
do. Yeah, do you want me to? Here we go. This is a clip of Nathan's number one.
Hello?
So was that was a clip of Joseph's last date night, wasn't it?
With the pig sound?
With you, Justin. With you. See, that's how he knows the sex is so bad, because I told him.
It's all coming out. It's all coming out.
Actually,
Nathan,
if I can be, a little kind of nice to Justin, he lasted about 30 seconds, actually.
exactly. Well, that's because obviously you were better than Erik.
Yes.
Nathan. So Nathan, why did you love this so much?
Well, it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is the greatest movie ever made, and I guess it's a childhood thing for me. When I first saw that scene where Kurt gets hit, with the sledge, and he just picks his body up like a rag doll and slings him into that little room and slams the door with such force. I mean, that's the first time Leatherface is seen on screen, and as a young kid watching this late at night at home, it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. So. I still think it holds up really well today. That scene does.
I would agree. It's kind of it's similar to the mannequins sequence in Deep Red, I think, where you've got that shock, something you're just not expecting. It completely takes you out of the moment, doesn't it? And
right.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, excellent choice. Okay, well, as time is running on, I'll just go on to mine very quickly. We've discussed it a little bit before, but mine would have to be the original Halloween. And the sequence I'm thinking of mostly, apart from, obviously, we played a little bit towards the end of the film, is the sequence where Jamie Lee Curtis finds, after she's found all her friends dead, and she leaves the house and she runs. She tries to get help from her neighbours, and all of her neighbours ignore her, and they all think it's a Halloween prank. And when she's trying to get back into the house, and she's trying to get Tommy to come down, she's got the keys, she can't get into the door, and then in the background, as Erik was saying, you've got Michael Myers appearing. It's just kind of that white face, sort of like hanging like a sort of a mask, just walking very calmly towards her. And for me, that still gives me chills. I think it's a masterclass in suspense and scares, which obviously the whole of Halloween is as well. And I'm glad to say, actually, some friends of mine showed their nephew, who I think is 11 or 12, the film the other day, and he's seen Rob Zombie's version already, and he thought the John Carpenter one was much better. So there is hope for the future.
Good kid.
Exactly. So, well, there's our top 3 scary moments. And
can I just say, Justin, I just want to say one thing about yours. That's one reason I love Jamie Lee as a heroine, because she can't get that door open, and she's very resourceful, because she grabs that big flower pot and throws it and busts it against the kid's window to wake him up. I always loved that part, that she thought to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's why she lived, wasn't it? Well, apart from she did leave that door open, which wasn't the best move. She shouldn't have done that, should she?
And she didn't have sex with you, Justin.
Yeah, but what kind of babysitter leaves children alone and then leaves a patio door open? So that's a black mark against Jamie Lee Curtis.
Not so much as a heroine, but as a babysitter.
Sorry?
She didn't earn her $10 that night.
No, she didn't.
I said she wasn't so much a bad heroine, she was just a bad babysitter.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll let her go with that. She did save them in the end. So, okay, well, that's
It's like the 70s version of that woman who just got released from Florida prison. What was her name?
Is that your sister? No, sorry. Who?
The one who killed her kids but got away with it.
Her. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we didn't really get much.
Anyway.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll move swiftly on. Shall we go on to our feature presentation, which, Joseph, you're going to lead us in, aren't you?
Yes.
After we've heard the trailer for 1982's The Incubus.
Galen Village. Tranquil. Quiet.
a nice place to live. But something has gone wrong.
Look at the bruises on the kid's neck. One hell of a large hand. His spine was crushed like a piece of balsa wood.
When the sun goes down, something stalks the streets of Galen Village.
Joe wants to call the Attorney General. Have him send in some help. What do you think I should do?
Take whatever help you can get.
30 years ago in Galen, these same types of murders occurred.
I think my past has something to do with these murders.
No, Jim, listen.
Something silent. Something lethal. Something or someone is killing the people of Galen.
I think I'm going crazy.
Every time he has this dream, somebody dies.
You're talking about actual materialization.
What kind of a quack are you? The boy's in the clear.
He's not in the clear. Every time this kid has a dream, somebody in this town dies.
It is real. It is alive. It is among us. The Incubus.
Okay, take it away, Joseph.
The summer peacefulness of the New England community of Galen is suddenly shattered by a series of murders. Dr. Sam Cordell, a newly arrived surgeon and pathologist, tries to help veteran police chief Hank Walden investigate the baffling crimes. Jenny, Dr. Cordell's daughter, tells her father about the terrible recurring nightmares suffered by her boyfriend, Tim Galen, which seem to coincide with the slayings. At the town museum, the scene of one of the murders, Dr. Cordell finds an ancient book that tells of the Incubus, a demon of many forms that ravishes women in their nightmares. He also learns that the Incubus and Succubus, a demon that appears to men, can be sexually interchangeable. In the film's shocking and terrifying climax, Dr. Cordell monitors Tim's nightmare, talking him through to the awful realization of what the Incubus is and who it is in human form. I first saw the Incubus back in 1997, I believe it was, having picked it up from a rental shop called Videos to Go on one of those 5 for 5 deals. 5 movies, 5 nights, $5. I remember watching it rather late at night, and the one thing that stood out to me the most was the atmosphere and how there's next to no humor underlying the film's cold, desolate feel. While the film does manage to adhere to the specific nature of the slasher film by utilizing POV shots and the standard graphic murders, the one thing that sets it apart is the underlying sleaze that so many films usually tend to avoid in favor of bubbly, cheesy thrills and spills. There may or may not be some sort of incestual subtext with John Cassavetes' character and his on-screen daughter, hinted at by unusual glances and touching. On top of that, the film is sadistic and unrelenting in its plot point of the doctor describing the murders to the local authorities. And you can kind of almost create a drinking game out of the words ruptured uterus or sperm. One of my favorite sequences that seems bizarre at first is a cameo by Iron Maiden frontman Bruce Dickinson in some sort of theater production. But his screeching and posturing actually underlines the scene quite well as we cut back and forth between his histrionics and a young woman getting murdered in the bathroom. Finally, the film ends just as it begins with a shot of an eyeball and the pupil dilating at the sight of something rather ghastly, which I won't spoil, at least not until after I hear from you guys. So how about you, Erik?
Yeah, the Incubus, I quite like it. It has a really weird tone for what I assume was sort of a larger than average budget slasher, since it has a director like John Hawke and it has John Cassavetes, is that how you pronounce his name? It's got quite a caliber of people sort of behind it. It's got Stanley Myers doing the music. And, you know, with all that sort of highbrow talent, it's amazing how sort of sleazy the film is in tone rather than, it's not graphically violent or sexual in any way, but the script is littered with all these, this astonishing amount of, as you said, you can make a drinking game out of every time they say ruptured uterus, sperm, intercourse. It's just every 5 minutes somebody is having a discussion about it. Yeah, and the dynamic between the father and daughter is very weird. I mean, the first time we're introduced to him, he's spying on his daughter in the shower, like she's naked, and then later they're holding hands in bed and they kiss on the lips, and it reminded me of the incestuous subplot in Amityville 2, The Possession, which it matches for sleaziness, I think. there's a strange kind of structure as well to the film. I was wondering if I didn't read any real background information on the film, but I'm wondering if there was any production problems with it, because like that family that are living in the countryside with the girl in the wheelchair and then the topless woman who runs around listening to new wave music. They seem to appear from nowhere, and then they're all killed off, and then it goes back to the main sort of thread of the story, as if it was a sequence thrown in afterwards to bump up the running time. But I mean, it's far from a classic, but it is hugely enjoyable because it's so offbeat, and it's completely unlike the other films of the era, like Happy Birthday to Me or My Bloody Valentine. And I think its weirdness is where its charm lies, because if you took that element out of it, I think it would be quite run of the mill and maybe a bit dull. But I did quite like it, yeah.
Cool. What about you, Nathan?
Oh, I really enjoy The Incubus. I think it's a really good movie. One thing that always stuck out for me with The Incubus is the camera shots. I love the camera shot with the girl in the wheelchair, and like the camera's sort of at the foot of her wheelchair as she's wheeling down the hallway to see her sister, and she kind of wheels to the front of the door, and you actually could see under the door, and you could see like a dead body in the room. I thought that was a great camera angle. I really like the music too. And obviously, I think that the way the movie ends is chilling, and especially the end credits, just kind of like you can just hear the wind howl or something as the credits roll. So I think that the movie did a really good job at maintaining like a creepy atmosphere throughout the whole thing.
All right, and Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I really like The Incubus. I think it's a very interesting film. It's got an atmosphere to it, which is unlike pretty much any other slasher movie of the time. But it's definitely, they've made it to be a slasher movie. I mean, if you like, the opening scenes is pure teen slasher with the teenage couple at the quarry, which I was wondering, it looked exactly like the quarry in Funeral Home. Do you remember the one the Leslie Donaldson goes?
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, and possibly the quarry in The Redeemer. Although I think that's a Canadian film, though.
No.
But I say it's very atmospheric. It's got a very strange dynamic, and I was trying to work out whether or not the some of the actors were not very good, or it was just that whole strangeness. Because obviously we will spoil the film because we always do, because we want to discuss what actually happens. But the person that I couldn't actually remember who the killer was, because obviously the idea behind it was that the incubus takes on human form during the day, and so it kind of becomes a bit of a whodunit, rather than whodunit. So it was trying to work out who it was, and I always remembered it being John Cassavetes' character was the killer, but in fact it's not. What it turns out to be is basically the journalist played by Kerry Keane, who was also in Spasms and in lots of soap operas these days. And she's got a really strange manner to her. She looks quite reptilian. She doesn't look reptilian, but she's detached. And there's a very strange kind of bit where John Cassavetes talks to her, and he offers to give her a lift home, and she just says, "I don't want tenderness." And it's kind of this it's almost like an not Italian, but like an European art house feel to it. And obviously John Cassavetes is kind of well known as a kind of making art house movies, as Aline says later on. And so it kind of brings some of that through to it. The other thing, I'll just say, come back to you, Joseph, but one thing that really took from it, again, was this idea that you've got this character, Tim, who was the kind of the teenage boy who's being plagued by dreams. And he has the idea he has to keep awake, otherwise, if he dreams, people will die. And obviously, again, we talked about the Slayer fairly recently, and about the debt A Nightmare on Elm Street may have owed to that film. But I would also add the Incubus in there, because the film was made in tail end of 1980, so it may have even predated the Slayer, I'm not sure. But I think it was that whole idea of playing around with dreams and reality, and the consequences of dreams actually having deadly consequences, rather than just, you know, you dream and then you wake up and everything's all right. And I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, when we did this show on the Slayer a while back, I mentioned how both films have sort of the same atmosphere, and I compared the two to kind of they both have this almost made-for-TV feel, if you can pick up on that.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's because it's supposed to be set in New England, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a New England town, so like a small, sleepy, kind of misty town, and you know, and the Slayer has that, you know, that misty island atmosphere. Then they both deal with dreams, and they both have monsters that are not revealed until the very end, and they're only on screen for like, you know, a few seconds. So I find both of them kind of stand up well against one another. They're almost like mirror images in some ways.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I do actually, talking about things being quite scary, I mean, I actually found the farmhouse scene actually quite frightening. It still holds up as quite a very effective kind of slasher movie scary moment with the, you know, the guy getting the shovel to his neck, the farmer, and then his daughter in the shower being killed, and his wheelchair bound daughter with the door suddenly, she knows her sister, presumes it's her sister, is kind of in trouble, and then she goes and then the door blows open, which kind of reminds me of a film like Superstition. It's got those kind of that kind of thing. And again, also the scene in the museum where the woman is kind of looking around the library section, and you know, very effective pieces of suspense, I thought, in the film. But also some quite boring, if to be honest, sort of soap opera-ish things, but also tinged with some very strange, as you've already pointed out, kind of character dynamics between the father. One thing I didn't get, I was going to ask actually, if you, because John Cassavetes is there with his teenage daughter, who Erin Noble, who's got massive eyebrows. There was a strange thing of eyebrows, wasn't it, in this film? Lots of characters had big bushy eyebrows, but she looks like a hobbit. It's very strange, but anyway. But it was the whole thing that the soap opera thing comes through, that his wife had died, and then he'd taken up with a younger woman who is actually the spitting image of Kerry Keen's character, which again should give you a clue of who the killer was, I kind of guess. But there's shots of John Cassavetes looking demonic, looking down at the bloody body of his wife. What did you take from that? You know,
I assumed that the bloody body was his girlfriend rather than his wife.
Right.
Because had the girlfriend died? Had she?
I'm not really sure. I got a bit confused by that.
Actually, maybe you're right. Maybe it was the wife, but I wasn't sure what that all had to do with anything. It seems to go nowhere. It's one of there are a couple of plot strands that go nowhere in the film, and that was one of them. And that's what made me think that maybe there was sort of script problems during filming.
Well, there was quite a lot of problems with it, but I'll talk a bit about those later, unless anyone else sort of touches on them. How about you two, sort of Nathan and Joseph? You got anything else to say before we go to the first interview?
Well, getting back to scary moments, I just want to kind of go along with the ending, which I'm going to spoil. Is basically that final shot is really terrifying. I mean, he's downstairs, he's kind of watching over the Tim character, the teenage boy, and so he thinks that he is the incubus, and if he's got him under his control, he can stop. He thinks his daughter is going up to her room to go to bed is safe, but the reporter, the journalist, she goes up there with her, so and she's obviously the incubus, so he doesn't know, and he goes up there after hearing the screams and stuff, and he sees the reporter, and he doesn't quite see what's on the bed yet, and he hugs the reporter, and his eye focuses on his daughter, and she's been raped, and they zoom in, they actually zoom into her crotch region, and it's like spurting blood, and that music just swells up, and it focuses back on his eyeball, and that's you realize that's what the opening scene was, and I don't know, I find that really, really jarring. It's a really scary moment.
I found that again, it's got one of those kind of weird things going on with it, isn't it? Because when the journalist goes up and takes the daughter a Coca-Cola, which is kind of a bizarre bit of product placement, isn't it?
Mm,
It's kind
yes.
of like,
Yeah, that's-
have a
that's
Coca-Cola before you're
out,
raped
yeah.
to death.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine the people at Coca-Cola, they went, the makers of the Incubus, and said, okay, we've got this great scene where this teenage girl gets raped by an incubus with a massive phallus. Do you want us to put a Coke in it? But obviously they did. So, but the strange thing was the teenage
You don't
daughter...
want to hear what Pepsi's doing for their advertising.
Oh, God, yeah. But the way the teenage daughter looks up, there's a moment she looks at her and she smiles at her, kind of almost lavaciously, if that's the right word. But she looks at her, she almost as if like she... I thought, when I watched that, I thought, oh, is she the killer? Because she looks at her as if almost like an evil glint, but like a lustful glint at the,
she wants
at the
it.
killer. As if she wants it. And and then, you know, you find out she has been raped to death. So which some very interesting or disturbing sexual politics going on in the film. And how much was intended, I don't know. But we can talk a little bit about the book maybe a little bit later. So
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll come back. If anything else we want to talk about, then we've got plenty of options.
I do have some a few little tidbits, but I'll save those for after the interviews when we come back from those.
Okay. Well, shall we go with the interview with Dirk McLean first?
Yeah,
Do you
that sounds
want to
good.
introduce that, Joseph?
Okay, this is Dirk McLean. He played the Incubus, and he was brought in after the film had already started shooting, and basically he has a really small but effective role in the film, and that's it. Take it away.
Okay, and here's Dirk.
Let's go. It's too cold.
It's too cold. You're the one that's cold tonight. What's wrong, Mandy? I know. Music, right? You want some music. Wait right here.
All right, I'm here with Dirk McLean. He was in The Incubus as The Incubus, and he's going to answer a few questions today. So welcome to the show, Dirk.
Thank you, Joseph.
All right, I guess first off, how did you become involved with The Incubus?
I went to an audition, and they'd already started shooting, and they had a monster that was of a different design. And it was more like almost like a panda, a big, huge bear, and that wasn't working out for them, for the director, stylistically. So they wanted a different concept to the Incubus character. So instead, they selected me, and I was like a lean, wiry figure, and more demonic, and something that appeared more dangerous on camera.
Most films of this nature, they kind of adhere to a specific formula of like a stalker who kills teenagers, but the Incubus sort of kind of broke the mold and told a story about a demonic entity which is killing women with, I guess, essentially it's a gigantic phallus. I mean, were you apprehensive about taking on the role due to its subject matter?
No, not at all. I was young. I was this was 1980, in the fall of 1980 when we shot it. So no, I was quite open to it, and you know, it was a role as an actor.
Right. Had you read or were you aware of the 1976 novel on which the film was based?
No, I only heard about that afterwards.
We don't really see much of the actual creature design until the last few frames of the film, but apart from that particular sequence, how much more of the film were you involved with, and were there any?
Were
there any
there
sequences?
Was a lot more shot.
Okay. Any sequences you remember shooting that didn't make it into the film?
There's the big scene, basically when John Cassavetes is telling the boy to bring it through. In other words, to induce the dream. He's inducing the dream to bring it through. Basically, it's the monster, but Cassavetes, the doctor, doesn't quite know what is going to manifest, and until it does. So because it's almost as if he's in this boy's head, in essence, but it's much more than that. And for someone who hasn't seen the film, I don't want to quite give away the very last frame.
Oh no, it's a shocker.
Yeah. It's a good twist.
Yes, it is. It's very haunting, I think.
Yeah.
Were you on set for a lot of the filming? I mean, did you is there any kind of behind the scenes stories you might remember?
No, but most of the time of the shooting, I was in makeup testing, and then in makeup, and because the makeup was full body makeup, my head was cast so that the creator of the Incubus, Maureen, so she had to sculpt from the cast of my face, and it was this was weak. It was quite complicated, and then testing for color, and testing to make sure that it was somewhat realistic and not like the tone was grayish green, but more of a pastel. My nails were built on, so there were claws built onto my own nails. So my fingers and my toes, and that was for one sequence of grabbing a girl in a washroom stall in cinema scene. And so you see the hands just grab her and pull her down, and she's one of the victims. And that took a few hours, and that was a Friday. We hadn't completed all of that scene, so I had to go home basically with the nails on, because they were like soldered on to my own nails, and built and carved and so on, both fingers and toes. And this was in the fall. So I spent the weekend in sandals so that the toes, wouldn't get broken off in time for Monday to resume shooting, and at least it wasn't in the middle of winter.
So if you were wearing sandals, did anyone kind of give you strange looks when they saw the?
Yeah, it was near Halloween at that point, so people thought I was preparing for Halloween.
So you kind of got away with it a little bit then.
Yeah.
What was it like to? I mean, did you get to speak with John Cassavetes, if you remember?
He was the schedule was tight. He was basically involved in some rewrites as we were shooting, and he was very much to himself and just busy. So because he wasn't just an actor on the show, so he was concerned about how it was progressing, how it was developing, and everything. So I didn't have much time talking to him. Just the introduction, basically, that was it. One of the things of the making of this film was they used a particular lens. There was a lens that was developed that gives the effect, if you were to see this on a large screen, it gives the effect of as if you're in the room. It almost like places you visually much closer than other films did at that time. I don't know if that technique has been employed by anyone else.
I'm not sure of the name of it, but I think I've heard of that before. But when was the last time you saw the film?
Well, I would think maybe about 10 years ago.
Do you have a personal opinion of it?
I liked it. I enjoyed it very much. Again, as you said, it was a unique story at that time, and even though it's the scenes are somewhat realistic, so there wasn't stuff where people would laugh at certain horrific moments. This brought a lot of emotion to the viewer, and it came across very powerfully. I mean, I know there were people who saw it and had trouble sleeping at night because, like, what if a monster like this comes into my dream? And
right. A lot of those types of films, they have a little bit of underlying humor, but the Incubus is pretty humor-free. It's pretty dark and it's straightforward. Yeah. But Yeah, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I was just wondering if you'd be interested in telling us what you're up to these days.
These days I'm busy more as a writer. I'm a children's author.
Oh, wow.
And I have a recent children's picture book called Curtain Up, which is, the subject matter is theater. A young girl lands the lead role in a play, and it's their first big play. And in essence, she's taking the reader through the process from auditioning, through rehearsals, finding about, learning about theater, all the way through to opening night. And there's that, and I'm working on my first young adult novel, which will be out next year, which subject matter is cricket. Do you know cricket? Do you know much about cricket?
The sport?
Yeah, the sport.
I know a little bit. I've never played or anything, but I know what it is.
Right. So, yeah. So enjoying things like that. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Dirk, and good luck to you in the future. And
okay,
hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you then. Take care.
Tim, I got some bad news.
What's the matter, Jenny?
It's about Roy. He was killed last night. He was murdered.
All right, that was Dirk McLean. He played the Incubus in the Incubus, and I just want to say thank you, Dirk, for taking the time out of your day to talk with me. I know you're a very busy man, but we really appreciate it here. And I have a few little tidbits about the film. I couldn't really find a whole lot, but what I did find was the German title is Murderish Trauma or something like that. I'm not German, so I can't pronounce it, but it basically means murderous dreams, going back to the whole Nightmare on Elm Street, the Slayer kind of connection. And despite the film's title, the Incubus creature only appears on screen for 10 seconds of running time, so I thought that was kind of a neat little tidbit. The production script consultant, Jeremy Hull, that's a good name for the Incubus. He cameos in the film as one of the witch torturers in one of the flashback scenes. And the feature film debut for actress Carrie Keene, who played the reporter. She was a reporter, right?
Yeah,
Carrie Keene.
Right. Yeah.
She's obviously most famous for her roles on The Young and the Restless and one of Eric's favorite shows, Beverly Hills 90210.
Woo! Who did she play in 90210?
I'm not sure. I just know she had a significant role. She was...
Let me check.
I want to know who she was on Young and the Restless.
Yeah. She was on both shows she was on both shows for a significant amount of time, and she's fairly well known for both roles.
Let me see. Oh, I think I know who she was. I think she tried to get into Jason Priestley's underpants in 90210.
Oh.
Yes. She was his lecturer's wife in university.
So she was one of those MILFs then, huh?
She was a total MILF, yeah.
Or cougar, or whatever they call them. Whatever. But let's see. That's pretty much all the little tidbits I could find. Either of you have anything?
I've got quite a bit, but I'll let you go first, Erik.
Okay. Well, my tidbit of information is based on my favorite part of the film, I should say, and that is, as you would expect, the appearance of the rock band Samson, fronted by Bruce Dickinson. This was just before he joined Iron Maiden. It actually was not shot for the Incubus. It was actually an existing music video they'd made in 1980 for their song Vice Versa, and they incorporated bits of it into the Incubus. I'll tell you what I found about it. It was part of a short B movie they filmed circa 1980 for 2 songs from their album Head On. The short film depicts a super roadie who fights evil orange jumpsuit-wearing bouncers, and they have their faces painted green for some reason. You can view this footage on YouTube if you want, and they're trying to stop the rock and roll crowd from having a good time, so the bouncer tries to beat them up so that the crowd can go wild. So the bouncer set this evil wench on her, and she's the one who cuts his hair. Because it's the Samson myth, he cuts his hair and reduces his strength, but in the end he manages to knock over a big pile of amplifiers and kills the evil roadies so that the crowd can have their good time in the end. It's a bit silly, but I have to say, I'm not a fan of metal normally. I'm not a fan of Iron Maiden, but I think the song Vice Versa is brilliant.
Well, we might be playing that, sort of finishing the show with that song.
Yay!
So, yay. Well,
you can buy it for 99. Well, if you're in the Eurozone, you can buy it for 99 cents on iTunes.
Yeah, well, there
See,
you go.
I rather like Iron Maiden myself.
Do you? Yeah.
Yes.
I like Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, the music by Stanley Myers. He was most famous probably for his score to The Deer Hunter, but he also did the score to Frightmare, the 1974 movie that we've mentioned a few times.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, that's interesting. Fantastic.
And John Cassavetes apparently had a hand in retweaking the script during filming. Horror fans will probably know him best from his roles in Rosemary's Baby and The Fury.
Cool. Okay, how about you, Nathan? You got anything?
I'm sorry, I don't have anything.
Oh, Nathan.
What a fucking surprise.
I am doing
Do your
a lot
homework.
of research on the next pick, okay? It's taken up a lot of time.
Okay,
Well, it only took
all right. Well, we shall
18
see.
episodes to get to you to have something, so I guess it better be worth it.
Yeah,
I'm the
better be
one that
worth
helped
it.
out on Chopping Mall. I told you about Barbara Crampton's soap opera stuff.
Exactly.
Yes.
That was very good. Very good. Okay. Well, I've got a few bits and peepees. Bits and pieces.
Bits and peepees.
Bits and peepees. No, nothing like that.
Play the cat flushing the toilet song again. I can't remember how it goes.
I've closed YouTube now.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Well, The Incubus was based on a book by a novelist called Ray Russell, and it was published in 1976. And obviously, it's much more explicit about the rape murders, and I think it goes into much more detail. Although I've not actually read it, about this kind of monster, the Incubus, sort of stalking a Californian town. It was originally set in California with a giant phallus. And as I said before, I think as I mentioned in the book, it's in Teenage Wasteland, that the 1980s, early 1980s, were very adventurous in movie making, in horror movie making, but obviously wasn't that adventurous to show anything that explicit. So the film itself is quite understated. Interestingly, David Cronenberg was offered the job of directing the film, and he turned it down. Apparently, he was preparing a 3-part film, or a kind of anthology film, actually, with John Carpenter and another director, which actually fell through when Carpenter, I think, he went off to direct another film. The film was released in, it was made in, I think, in November 1980. And it wasn't released in the States until September 82, so it's almost 2 years later. Interestingly, the film itself actually got held up for a number of reasons. One of them was the film went into receivership in Canada. Well, basically, I'm not quite sure what happened, but I found something saying that it went into receivership by a Canadian bank in November 1981, which goes to show why the film's probably held up from being released. What else was there? When it was released in the States in 82, it actually made quite a lot of money. The budget was about $5.1 million. I'm not sure if that was Canadian or American, but it made $13 million at the box office, which is about $30 million in today's money. So I've got a cat sort of around me, Gilbert, and he's got...
He flushed in the toilet.
No, he's not flushing the toilet, but what he's doing is being a right little bastard, because he's get caught up in my microphone cable. So anyway, you might hear him if he's purring. So I've got cat's arse in my face. But apart from that, I shall try and move on like the professional that I'm not. John Cassavetes was obviously known as, apart from as Erik saying, for a few genre pieces, but he was known as a kind of sort of serious actor who was only really in art films, and he was known as taking these films basically to fund his kind of more small-scale art films. However, apparently he really liked this film. I found something from a paper at the time, and he says that The Incubus was the most fun I've had making a picture. And I think when we talked to Helene, she'll tell a little bit more why that was. He went on to say, I think it's going to be a really good film, and if I'm wrong, I'll eat the picture. So I don't know what he meant by that, but so he obviously thought it was going to be good. He goes on to say, this picture is going to be terrific. It was also made with John Ireland, who played the cop in this. What else have we got? Actually, John Cassavetes was a doctor before he became an actor, so it kind of mirrors his online persona. What else have we got here? There's a quite funny review I found from the New York Times by Vincent Canby, who really hated slasher movies, like most reviewers did at the time. And he basically sums it up by saying, movies like this aren't totally worthless. They provide employment for a number of people. So he obviously didn't like it. He says that the killer looks like a large, shaggy, extremely mean E.T. with bad teeth. So, as you can tell, he wasn't particularly keen on the film. I think that's pretty much everything I've got. Apart, obviously, just wanted to reiterate what Dirk said, which I had no idea, but I thought it was quite funny when he said the killer was originally a giant panda. Did you got that from there, didn't you? Or kind of bear-like creature, but he says it's like a giant panda. And wouldn't that have been amazing to have a film with a killer panda?
Well, Girls Night Out. I would like to at least see the actual. I'd like to see footage of if they shot any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously, and also I was going to say the director, he kind of started off with Hammer, and he directed things like Twins of Evil, and obviously went on to films like Legend of Hell House, and also American Gothic, which is kind of is another kind of slasher-esque movie, and also Howling 4, I think, the original Nightmare, which I don't think it's quite as bad as Howling 3 and the Marsupials, but I don't think it's a great film, as far as I can remember. I think that's everything for background that I've got on the film. Apart from, obviously, it was a Canadian film. It wasn't shot in the US. But apart from that, I think that's everything. One last thing. It got a UK cinema release in November 1982. And interestingly, the quad poster, which I don't have, but when I was looking around for information on it, I found it. And it says it's actually got the video label on the kind of the movie poster, and a bit like how we discussed Superstition when that was released as The Witch in UK cinemas. It was released actually after it was very popular on video, but this actually got a dual release at the cinema and also VT. Sorry, I'm breaking up there. Can you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I went. Sorry, it's a little bit of
cat.
Yeah, it's my cat. I think she's doing something strange.
It's the cat's arse.
It's cat's arse, yes. But the VTC label, it was released on that and also at the same time at the cinema. So that's everything I've got on the Incubus.
Well, I watched the version I watched was on the VTC label, and it was very, very dark. Now, I watched a couple of clips on YouTube since, and it's much brighter, and I kind of wish I'd sort of sourced a better copy, but the VTC one was kind of dodgy in places. I'm wondering if it might have been cut as well.
Possibly. I saw the American DVD release, which is pretty, a good copy, and it's obviously, I think it's probably got all the gore in it as far as I'm aware. I mean, obviously the goriest bit in the whole film is actually against a man, isn't it? When the farmer gets a shovel to his neck.
He accidentally shoots his foot, with a shotgun.
Yeah. Okay. Was anything else you want to say before we go on to the second interview?
No.
Okay. Right. Well, Nathan, do you want to introduce our second interviewee, even?
Yes, I contacted Ellen Udy, who has a small role in it, but she had a interesting story to tell about the movie. So,
okay, and here's the interview.
It's impossible for any man, I don't care how big, to do this. Crazy people have abnormal strength, right?
Yes, right. Ma'am, no photos.
Hi, everybody. This is Nathan, and I'm talking with Ellen Udy from My Bloody Valentine and the Incubus. And thank you very much for doing this, Ellen.
It's my pleasure, Nathan.
How did you get involved with the Incubus?
Well, again, let's see. It was an audition, but again, I think it was a matter of me, excuse me, being terrifying being terrified. They had a little piece of dialogue, but they were really wanted to know if I could be committed to terror. I think that's what occurred. And I'm not sure if the part that I got was the part that I auditioned for. It may not have been, but I did end up with a part in the movie, and that was fun. And I was very, very excited about it because, of course, it starred John Cassavetes, who was a complete art house superhero on that level, and so I was very, very impressed.
What was it like working with him?
Hang out with him. Well, he was such a lovely man, and I think that he wasn't sure how to take the fact that he was working on a horror movie seriously or not. I remember one day he had a scene that I was in, and so I participated in this scene, and he had to walk up to the couple that were pregnant and say to them, I think that I found a 3-spronged sperm. That was the sentence that he had to say. It's a 3-spronged sperm. And why do I remember that? Because we must have taken that scene over about 20 times. And the first time he giggled, and we went back to the first, to the stage one, and again, take 2, take 3, and by take 20, before they even said rolling, the whole room was in hysterics because he had managed to have such a laughing fit. I think we had to cut that scene. The whole scene had to be cut out of the movie because nobody was able to accomplish it without laughing, and it was all due to that sentence, the 3-spronged sperm, which in retrospect is kind of a funny idea if you think about it too hard. So there you go.
So, I mean, that whole scene was just cut out then.
The whole scene was cut out, and if you had been there on that day, I think everybody went home with an aching belly because our stomachs got a lot of exercise that day. So Mr. Cassavetes just could not say it without cracking up.
Oh, that's really funny. Although it's a shame, though, that that scene didn't get in because your character's not really in the Incubus very much, right?
It's not. No, it's not. Yeah, shame on Cassavetes. He just made your scene away. No, I really don't mind it. It was okay. It was a really, really memorable day, and I'm grateful for it. It was fantastic.
Was filming the Incubus different from filming My Bloody Valentine?
Come again? What did you say?
Was the Incubus filming it a lot different than filming My Bloody Valentine, or were they about the same kind of sets and atmosphere on the sets?
No, completely different because My Bloody Valentine was a group of kids, which is what I was at the time, who were really, really excited about being actors and really, really excited about this opportunity. And Incubus was with a bunch of, with one major star who had had an incredible career, and in a way was reduced to doing a movie. I think in his head it might have been that he was reduced to doing a movie. It was a very somber, kind of odd, weird atmosphere, which is why maybe we had laughing fits because the atmosphere was tense. It was weird. But it was the director was fabulous and really John Cassavetes had a great spirit about it, but it was a completely different thing. It was not at all as much fun.
The Incubus, did you go see that at the theater when it came out?
I did go see that in the theater when it came out. I kind of remember it being a fairly good movie.
Yeah, it's actually pretty creepy. I mean, the Incubus, the monster looked really good. It was good effects, I think.
Yeah, I kind of remember that, and maybe that was part of it. They were, I don't know. Yeah, it was an interesting movie. It was worth working on, and I think it ended up well. So, despite the fact that I wasn't in it much.
Yeah.
There was that mistake, but other than that.
Yeah, they should have had you in it more.
That's right.
So, let's see here. So, about the film now, I mean, so are you proud of being a part of the Incubus?
One of the most seminal experiences in my life was actually spending a day with John Cassavetes. You just can't beat that. And his wife.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. And, I'm proud of all of the work that I've been able to do because every piece of work that I've been able to do has been with great people who have really been dedicated to doing a great job. So, and I have done the best that I could. So, there's very few. Well, there's one or two films that shall remain nameless so that you can't look them up online that I'm not proud of. But Incubus and My Bloody Valentine are not one of them.
Oh, and you're still doing horror movies even recently. You did one called Katie Bird, Certifiable Crazy Person, right?
Yes, I did.
And what's that about?
Yeah, that is a movie I'm also extremely proud of. A really, really talented director and working on a very, very small budget with a really creative sense of how he was going to put this film together, and done on a micro budget, and it really turned out fantastically well. Yeah, I recommend that movie.
And what's it about?
Well, it is about Katie Bird, myself, who was brought up by a serial killer's father and bred to be a serial killer, and how she came to be Katie Bird, Certifiable Crazy Person.
Oh. Well, I've got to see this now because you play the victim in so many movies. Now I actually see you like playing, the bad guy for once.
Yes, I am, exactly. I'm the anti-hero, but the hero.
Oh, yeah. And it's good to see you. It was good to see you in a lead role too, because your part in the Incubus was kind of small, and My Bloody Valentine, I would have been interested to see what they would have done with your character had you gone to the mine.
Had I gone into the mine,
yeah.
Well, I would have done a lot of screaming because definitely I was good at that. But no, Katie Bird, Certifiable Crazy Person is a nice lead role, and it's a very challenging story, and it was a very challenging role, and it was a really tough shoot because the director is kind of a manic genius, so he throws stuff at you, and you at the time I had no idea where he was going with it, but in retrospect he really knew what he was doing, and he was working under intense pressure, and I think he did a really fantastic job, and I know that he's done a couple of other horror movies since Katie Bird, Certifiable Crazy Person. I'm sure they're all equally inventive and worth seeing. Definitely worth seeing.
Yeah, and I'll definitely look that one up because I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Ellen, but I'm very appreciative, and I know my fellow hosts on the podcast, thank you very much for being willing to do these interviews today.
Oh, you're so welcome, Nathan. Thanks for asking me. I'm flattered, and it was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Talk to you again. Bye.
Bye.
It's a nightmare. It's the same nightmare over and over again. And every time I have the dream, someone dies. Roy Seeley, Carolyn Davies. It's every time I have the dream. Oh, I think I'm going crazy.
And I really appreciate Ellen being willing to do that interview. She actually did it from her car and pulled over to the side of the road to do it with me. So
really?
It was really nice of her. Yeah, and I know how that sounded, but I did not mean it that way. I'll put it that way.
Hey?
I meant she was willing to do the interview.
Oh, right. Okay. No, thank you, Elaine.
I have a question about the Incubus for you guys, something I'm kind of curious about. Do you think that the journalist is some woman that the Incubus killed and just assumed her form, or if that woman never existed and the Incubus just took that form?
I think, wasn't she supposed to be Tim's sister?
Was she? See, I can't.
Yeah, because Tim at the very end, he says he when he sees her, he realizes from his flashback, he's like, "You're my sister."
Yeah,
yeah, because she's 30 years old, isn't she? And it was 30 years old. 30
yeah, because John Cassavetes
yeah.
says that he could have a brother, but it turns out he has a sister.
Yeah, because they keep on saying that they can sort of have sex with men and women, can't they? And they can sort of go between male and female. So
yeah, the sex is interchangeable.
Yeah.
I guess
so that's why I took from it.
Hermaphrodites, like, maybe?
Yeah. But that's why I wondered, do you think it was Kerry Keane was actually... Because she's got a very strange way of acting in the film, isn't she? And I thought...
See, I always wondered if she was like, conscious of her, going around killing people with a big dick. If she knew it was happening.
With a strap on.
or if she was just blacking out and it was happening. I don't know. I always wondered.
Yeah, because it'd be a strange kind of career choice to open a newspaper, wouldn't it? And also be a supernatural, psychotic incubus killer with a strap on. You know,
it would.
Yes.
You know, it's well, I don't know, but I mean, who knows? You know, get inside the head of you know, a killer like that. But
I've just discovered who she was on 90210. She also played an evil double crosser. She tried to trick Dylan out of all his money by pretending that her daughter was his half sister.
Mm.
It was very soap opera-y, yeah. So I mean, there was kind of an incubus element to that as well.
There was.
I've
got one question. I've got one question about the Incubus, which I didn't really understand, and it's kind of going into kind of like CSI. Sorry, there goes Gilbert. Thing of it, but why do you think there was so much sperm in all the other rapes, but not the first one?
Maybe he like made her swallow.
That wasn't the answer I was looking for. I was looking for but I just wondered.
He got a headache.
I thought he just, didn't. He hasn't, found his niche yet. He hadn't. He wasn't experienced enough at that point.
Or maybe he wore a condom the first time.
Well, that's why I did wonder. That's why I did wonder that.
But it's probably a big plastic shopping bag, I'd say, rather than a condom.
It's a garbage bag.
A garbage bag, yeah. But I know the pain, cursed as I am with a giant phallus myself.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who did you borrow that off?
What? Oh,
the giant phallus. Yeah. No. Well, I just wondered. It seemed a bit strange, and I loved Aline's story about John Cassavetes and her one scene, wasn't it? I think we're talking about the 3-pronged sperm, and he couldn't stop laughing, and so they had to cut that out. So
congrats to her for surviving the movie.
Exactly.
I'm surprised that he couldn't stop laughing, because one of the things, if you said he was a qualified doctor before he became an actor, yeah? Yeah, but surely to be a qualified doctor, you have to be able to say words like penis and vagina without laughing.
I think it was that. I think it was the ridiculousness of the idea of having.
I know, but one of the things about doctors is they have to be really restrained, even when they're saying really rude things. They have to hold it in.
Oh, okay.
Do you not think?
Well, they probably do. They probably do.
Just try.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. But apparently there is a burning issue that Nathan wants to get off his chest.
Is there?
Well, that's what you said in the break.
Is it about the cat? The poor cat who gets hit with the newspaper in the Incubus?
No. I thought you were going
to. Did you notice that scene, Nathan or Justin?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very cruel. It was unnecessary.
It wasn't necessary. No.
No. What? That was what my thing was. I just wanted to know what y'all's opinion was on journalist.
Okay.
And I want to say that I think Susie's very mean.
No, see that's what I was alluding to. Yes, I mean I'm sure our devoted listeners have missed the Susie versus Toya talk, and we were just trying to discuss who was meaner, Susie or Toya. I reckon Susie's probably meaner, but
she is meaner. In all seriousness, she is.
She is, but then that's why she's better.
Why?
Well, because it's more interesting, isn't it, than being, a jolly gonk.
What's a gonk?
It's one of those things that
sounds racist.
Sorry? No, you know what a gonk is.
It might be racist.
A gonk is one of those dolls with the shocks of ginger hair.
They're not trolls.
Yeah, but they're called gonks.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
I've never heard of
those in Ireland.
Yeah.
But that's what they. Yeah, that's what. So,
okay, well, who's meaner between Susie and Hazel O'Connor?
Who's that?
Oh, never mind.
Justin, while we're on the subject.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Justin, you know who Hazel O'Connor is, don't you?
I do know who Hazel O'Connor is, yes.
Well, while we're on the subject of 80s music, Justin, what do you have against Spandau Ballet?
Yeah.
Well, they're crap. They were kind of... they were everything in the 80s. Well, exactly. It was all kind of like suited and booted tossers with pouts. I just could, it was very boring. I mean, it's the antithesis of Toya and even Susie. It's kind of like where it's kind of very theatrical and a bit more entertaining. And Spandau Ballet, where just stood around, loved each other. Well, not each other, loved themselves. and did very bland music for fat women to dance at office parties
You
to.
should listen to their second album, Diamond, which is quite experimental.
I don't know if this much is true, Justin.
I think it
that's
is.
just your opinion.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. This episode has been gold. So,
nice one.
Thank you.
Okay, while we're on the subject of 80s pop stars, I discovered today an interesting fact about Mark Almond of Soft Cell.
Anything
his favorite film, back in 1981 anyway, his favorite film was Friday the 13th Part 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a blog on the internet called As If Punk Never Happened, and what he does is he publishes an old episode of the British music magazine Smash Hits from 30 years ago this weekend. So it's August 1981 he's published, and it's got an interview with Mark Almond, and he says he loves Friday the 13th Part 2.
Oh, there you go. Well, I know Susie.
Someone should do a Jason kind of collage with Tainted Love playing in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, that's who that is.
Yeah,
See, I don't know who any of the people that sing these songs are. I just know the songs.
So you're so young, that's why.
Yeah. Not that young.
You could talk to us about Lady Gaga and stuff like that. We wouldn't have a clue.
But you didn't know.
Well, you brought her up, so you know who she is.
Yeah,
Please
but
the one that wears the meat suits or whatever. She wears like steak on.
Hey, I would rather listen to Susie and Toya debate for the rest of my life than to mention Lady Gaga one more time. I hate her.
Yeah, but Nathan, you didn't know who Kylie was or is?
No,
Kylie Minogue.
Yeah.
No, I don't know who it is either.
You don't know who Kylie is?
Maybe if I heard some of the music, I'd know.
She was in Cut, wasn't she?
Yes, she is in Cut in the opening
I only
sequence.
remember Kylie Ringwald.
Well, she's Kylie plays the director.
Yeah.
In that. But you would know
Does she have
Kylie.
like a really popular song?
Yes. I mean, if we carry it up, I'm
Spinning
sure
around. It's
spinning
probably her most
around,
popular.
or to be honest, I imagine the people listening to the show probably aren't going to want to hear a sort of Kylie clip.
No.
And there's probably a
the
good
cat
reason for
flushing the
that.
toilet again.
I haven't got that anymore, but we'll save that. It's too much of a good thing. Well, okay, let me just let me just see if I can
This
find
episode
that.
has gone straight to hell.
Oh,
Yes.
just like the last one. Jesus
It
Christ.
is. It's just gone off the rails.
Okay, just for you guys. Here we go. Just a little bit of it.
He's a cat. Flushing the toilet, he's a cat.
Love it.
So,
I do too. I gotta find that. I got to find that.
yeah, just put into YouTube "cat flushing a toilet" song.
But we should probably put this episode out of its misery. It's
I
just
think
gone
we
to hell.
should. I think
Yes.
we should. Well, thank you
Sorry,
everyone for
Incubus,
joining
I really
us.
do love you. I'm sorry we made a mockery out of you today.
Who?
We.
Me?
We did not make a mockery
all of
out of the Incubus.
By ending the episode this way, we did.
Yeah.
But so I'm
we
apologizing
apologise
on behalf of
to
all
one
of
and
us.
all, apart from Toya. Okay, so we shall end it there, and potentially end it all. Who knows after this episode? But we'll fade out quite literally with the poison dwarf of metal himself. What was he called again?
Bruce Dickinson.
Bruce
But did you
Dickinson.
know that in this era he was just known as Bruce? Kind of like your friend Grant.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, he just Anyway,
He's probably not as conceited as Grant.
You're so mean to him.
let's fade out with the poison dwarf himself of metal, Bruce Dickinson singing some old rubbish, and
Vice versa by Samson.
Goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from. Come on.
Bye.
Jesus, feeding the lines.
Ruptured uterus.
Right.
Ruptured uterus.
Yes, thank you very much. All right. Hopefully you survived to the bitter end, and
Intercourse.
if you can face it even, we'll see you next time for one of the genre's most well-regarded and most popular movies.
Thank you.
Or, well, actually, I'm lying. It's probably one of the worst movies, but join us anyway for the autopsy of that film. See you later.